Silica was totally obsessed with flowers, but this one was a major exception. It was like a creepy imitation of a real bloom, and it made her skin crawl. "Get away," she shouted, swinging her dagger around wildly with her eyes almost shut. Kirito tried to calm her down. "Don't worry, it's really weak," he said. "Just aim for the pale spot under the flower and you'll be fine." But Silica was grossed out. But it's so disgusting," she exclaimed. Kirito sighed. "If you can't even handle this, you're going to be in big trouble," he warned. Kirito was telling Silica about some pretty crazy monsters. Some have tons of flowers, some can snap shut like giant fly traps, and some have a million squishy tentacles, he said. Silica's eyes widened in horror. "Yeek!" she shrieked. As Kirito kept talking, Silica got more and more freaked out. She tried to use her sword skill, but it was super sloppy and missed the target completely. The next thing she knew, a sneaky flower monster slipped up behind her. It wrapped its vines around her legs, and lifted her right off the ground. Silica felt like she was in a washing machine, spinning around upside down. The virtual world's gravity wasn't helping, either made her skirt slide down over her belly. "Guaza!" she shrieked, mortified. She quickly grabbed her skirt with one hand to pull it back into place. With the other hand she swung her sword wildly, trying to cut through the vine and escape. Silica was in a super awkward spot. Her face turned bright red as she got more and more frustrated. Finally she let out a loud cry for help. "Kirito! Help me! Don't look, just help!" Kirito tried to be a good sport, but it wasn't easy. He covered his eyes with one hand and said, "That's kind of hard to do." The giant flower was shaking Silica back and forth, like it was enjoying the show. Silica got fed up and shouted, "Just stop it already." She let go of her skirt and grabbed the vine that was holding her. With a quick slash she cut herself free. Silica felt herself falling, but she wasn't giving up yet. She swung her sword at the giant flower's long stem, and this time she hit it just right. The flower's head went rolling off. And then pang-a-boom. The whole thing exploded into a bunch of flying pixels. As the dust settled, Silica plopped down on the ground and turned to Kirito. "Did you see them?" she asked, still catching her breath. Kirito peeked out from behind his fingers, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "Nope, not me," he said with a grin. After fighting a few more of these weird monsters, Silica started to get the hang of it. They were able to move faster and fight better together. But there was this one super gross monster that looked like an urchin. It wrapped its slimy tentacles around her, and covered her from head to toe. Silica thought she might actually pass out from disgust. Luckily Kirito was there to help her out. When things got tough, he'd jump in and deflect any blows that came her way, giving her time to recover. And the best part, when they fought together as a team, Silica got lots of experience points for dealing damage to the monsters. It was a pretty sweet deal. Silica was on a roll. She was battling super tough monsters and doing most of the work, which meant she was earning experience points like crazy. In fact, she had already leveled up once. As they walked along the red brick path, they came to a small bridge that crossed over a bubbling brook. On the other side of the bridge, they saw a huge hill towering above them. The path curled around it, leading all the way to the top. "Check it out, that's the Hill of Memories," someone said. Another player looked around and noticed that there were no other paths to choose from. "Yeah, it looks like we're stuck on this one path from here," they agreed. "Okay, here's the plan," someone said. "There's only one path to the top, but beware, lots of monsters are waiting for us." "Got it," was the reply. Pina's friend was eager to reach the top, where she could finally come back to life. She started walking faster. As they climbed up the hill, surrounded by crazy-colored flowers, they began to run into more and more monsters. Just like Kirito had warned. Get ready for some serious action. The plant monsters had grown to enormous size, but Silica had a secret weapon, Plum Malak dagger, given to her by Kirito. It looked simple, but it packed a punch. With one powerful combo attack, they could take down most of the beasts. But here's the thing, Kirito was full of surprises too. Silica already knew he was super strong from when she saw him defeat 2 drunk apes with just one hit. Now, 12 floors higher up in Ankred, he was still going strong, no sweat, no problem. It turned out Kirito was way more powerful than she ever imagined. Whenever they met a bunch of monsters, Kirito would take care of all but one, and then blast the rest. He'd rush back to Silica in seconds to keep an eye on her. But the more awesome he fought, the more suspicious Silica got. What was a super strong swordsman like him doing on the 35th floor? He said he had some business in the Forest of Wandering, but Silica wasn't buying it. She had never heard of anything special coming from that place. No rare treasures or crazy monsters. Something just didn't add up. As they climbed higher, she promised herself that she'd ask him about this crazy adventure when it was all over. But for now they had to keep moving. The hill got steeper and rockier, and the bad guys they were fighting got tougher too. They pushed through a group of really tall trees, and suddenly the top of the hill came into view. "Wow!" she blurted out, taking a few excited steps forward. She just couldn't help herself. The sight was amazing. It looked like a huge field of colorful flowers, but instead of being on the ground, it was floating in the air. Imagine being surrounded by trees, with a huge open space filled with gorgeous flowers as far as the eye can see. Kirito walked up, putting his sword away on his back. "We finally made it," he exclaimed. "Is this where we'll find that special flower?" he asked. Just then Silica took off running. "There's a big rock in the middle of all these flowers," Kirito tried to say, but she was already gone. He had wanted to tell her that the special flower was on top of that rock, but she didn't wait to hear it. As she ran into the field, she spotted a huge white boulder right in the middle. She finally reached it, panting and out of breath. The rock was almost as tall as her chest. She peeked over the top, expecting to see something amazing. But nothing. Just a few tiny blades of grass stuck up from the flat top of the rock, like thin strings. No flower in sight. "Wait, it's not here," she exclaimed, looking around in confusion. Just then Kirito caught up to her at the rock. "Kirito, there's nothing here," she called out to him, sounding a bit frustrated. Tears started streaming down again, and Silica couldn't stop them. "This can't be real," she said, shaking her head. She looked back at the rock with him, and that's when she saw it. Wow! A tiny new bud was popping out of the soft grass. As soon as Silica focused on it, everything got super clear. It was like zooming in with a powerful lens. Two small white leaves opened up like a shell, and a skinny stem shot out from between them. The plant started growing fast. Really fast. It was like watching a time-lapse video in science class. Before her eyes, the stem got thicker and taller, and eventually a big bulb formed at the top. Something weird and amazing was happening. The shiny white bulb, shaped like a teardrop, started glowing with a deep red light from inside. Silica and Kirito stopped breathing as they watched. The tip of the bulb began to swell, and then ding! It burst open like a tiny door. Tiny sparks of light twinkled in the air. For a moment Silica and Kirito just stood there, staring at a beautiful little white flower that had appeared out of nowhere. It was like magic. Imagine a delicate flower with 7 thin petals that shone like tiny stars. As they unfolded, a soft glow spilled out, filling the air around it. Silica gazed up at Kirito, wondering if she should really touch something so amazing. Kirito noticed her hesitation and flashed a reassuring smile. He nodded slowly as if to say, "Go ahead." Silica smiled back and reached out a hand to gently touch the beautiful flower. As soon as she touched the thin stem, it shattered like delicate ice, leaving only a glowing flower in her hand. She held her breath and gently ran her finger over the flower's surface. Suddenly a small info window appeared. "PNUM, a flower." Her eyes widened with excitement as she thought, this could be the key to bringing back Pina. A voice confirmed her hope. "That's right. All you need to do is sprinkle the dew that collects inside the flower onto Pina's special heart item." "Hey, let's head back to town. Someone said, there are some pretty scary monsters around here. Just hang in there a little longer, and we'll be back before you know it." "Let's go," the other person agreed. "Okay." She then checked her inventory, adding the special flower to her collection. Once it was safely stored, she closed the window. Silica was super eager to use her teleport crystal to get back home instantly, but she took a deep breath and waited. Instead of using the crystal, she started walking back to town with the others. That super valuable crystal was only for extreme emergencies. Luckily, their trip back was a breeze. They hardly saw any monsters at all. The path downhill was steep, so they made great time. Before long they were back where they started. Just one more hour on the road, and she'd be reunited with her friend Pina. As she crossed the little bridge over the brook for the second time, her heart skipped a beat with excitement. But then out of nowhere, Kirito's hand landed on her shoulder from behind. Suddenly Silica spun around to face him. His eyes were fixed intently on the trees across the bridge, a serious scowl on his face. "Come out," he growled in a low, tough voice. "If someone's hiding over there, show yourself now." Silica's eyes darted to the grove. but she couldn't see anyone lurking in the shadows. Huh, she wondered, confused. What was going on? Who could be hiding in those trees? The leaves rustled and suddenly a green cursor popped up. This meant the person wasn't a bad guy. But what really caught Silica off guard was who appeared next. The girl had super red hair and lips to match. She wore shiny black leather armor, and held a skinny cross-shaped spear. Silica's eyes widened in surprise. Rosalia, she stuttered. Hey, what are you doing here? Rosalia asked with a sly grin. Ignoring the confusion on Silica's face. You must be pretty good at finding things if you can see past my hiding trick. Swordsman, she said. I might have underestimated how skilled you are. Then, Rosalia turned to Silica and said, I bet you found the Numa flower, didn't you? Congratulations. But Silica wasn't convinced. She took a few steps back, wondering what Rosalia was really after. What was behind her friendly words? Silica's eyes narrowed, suspicious of Rosalia's motives. Something didn't feel right, and before she knew it, her worst fears came true. Hand over that flower, a voice demanded. The girl was caught off guard. What for? She stuttered. Kirito stepped forward. His eyes locked on the person who had just spoken. That's not going to happen. Rosalia, he said firmly. Or should I call you something else? Like the leader of Titan's Hand, the Orange Guild. Rosalia's eyebrows shot up in surprise, and her sneer vanished. In the world of Sao, players who broke the rules were marked with a special symbol. If you stole, attacked, or even killed someone, your cursor would turn orange instead of green. It was like a warning sign that said, beware, this player is trouble. You might be wondering how people referred to these sneaky gamers. They were known as orange players, and the groups they belonged to were called orange guilds. Silica had heard of them, but she had never actually seen one in person. Then, something caught her attention. Wait a minute, but her cursor is green, someone said. It turned out that not all members of an orange guild were actually orange. Some of them were green, which meant they had a special job. These green players would hang out in town, find their targets, join a group with them, and then lead them into a trap. Guess what? The person who was spying on us last night is actually one of her friends. Silica's eyes widened in shock as she stared at Rosalia. Oh my gosh. You mean the whole time you were traveling with us? It was all just a trick. Rosalia's smile grew sneaky and mean again. That's right. I was testing how strong our group is, and waiting for you to collect more gold. It was like waiting for a juicy prize to get bigger and better. Today was supposed to be the day I collected my stuff, she said, licking her lips. But then the best part of the group backed out, and I had to switch plans. Luckily I made the right choice. The Muma flower is super rare, and really valuable. Having good info can be a total game changer. She looked at Kirito and shrugged. And yet you still fell for her trick. Are you seriously that clueless? Rosalia's words cut deep. Or did she tempt you with her youth and beauty? Silica's face turned bright red with anger. She was so furious that she almost pulled out her dagger. But just in time, Kirito grabbed her shoulder and held her back. Kirito remained calm and cool. Neither of those things is true. He said, I've been searching for you, Rosalia. His eyes locked onto hers, serious and intense. Rosalia raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? She asked, her voice dripping with attitude. Kirito's expression didn't change. It means I know what you did, he said. 10 days ago, you led an attack on the Silver Flags Guild. They were on the 38th floor, just trying to play the game like everyone else. Kirito's words hung in the air, accusing Rosalia of something big. 4 of them got killed, and only the leader managed to escape, Kirito said. The girl just shrugged and muttered, oh, those poor guys were always broke. She didn't even flinch. Kirito's voice turned icy cold. Their leader was a mess, hanging around the teleport gate on the last floor, begging anyone who would listen to help him get revenge. But then Kirito dropped a surprise. When I agreed to help him, he didn't ask me to hurt you. That's not what he wanted at all. He wanted to throw you and your friends in the dungeon under Black Iron Palace. Someone explained. Can't you see how upset he is? Rosalia just shrugged. I don't get what the big deal is, she said, sounding bored. You're so worked up over nothing. There's no way to prove that the people we take care of here are really gone for good. And even if it's true, when we go back home, they can't put us on trial or anything. Come on. It's crazy to talk about being fair and following rules when we're not even sure if we can get out of here. You know who the worst are? People like you who think they can figure everything out with their logic. It's like, hello, we're in a totally different world now. Her eyes got angry and scary looking. So you really believed that wimpy guy and tracked us down? What were you thinking? You must be really bored if you're messing with me. I have to admit, your trick worked, but what do you think you can do with just 2 people? A mean grin spread across her face. She waved her finger in the air twice, like she was saying, come and get it. The next thing that happened was crazy. The bushes and weeds on either side of the path beyond the bridge started shaking like crazy. Then a bunch of figures jumped out from where they were hiding. Suddenly Silica's screen lit up with a bunch of cursors. Almost all of them were glowing an eerie orange color which didn't look good at all. There were 10 of them in total. Luckily Kirito had warned her about the ambush, or she would have walked right into their trap while crossing the bridge, but one cursor caught her eye. It was green just like hers. And guess what? It belonged to a guy with super cool spiky hair, just like the mysterious person she saw sneaking around the inn hallway last night. The other 9 cursors belonged to a group of crazy-looking bandits. They were all dudes dressed in outrageous outfits, loaded down with shiny silver accessories that clinked and jangled as they moved. This was not good. A group of creepy guys were staring at Silica, making her feel super uncomfortable. They wouldn't stop looking at her and it was really grossing her out. Silica quickly hid behind Kirito's coat. Trying not to throw up, she whispered to him, Kirito, there are too many of them, let's get out of here. We can teleport away. But Kirito stayed calm. He told her, just be ready, but don't use your crystal yet. Wait for my signal. Then he patted her on the head and started walking across the bridge, like everything was no big deal. Silica's eyes widened in shock. Kirito was being totally crazy. He was going to get himself killed for sure. Kirito! She yelled, her voice echoing across the field. One of the bandits heard her, and his smile faltered. He looked confused. Trying to remember something. Wait a minute, that guy's outfit looks familiar. He muttered. He's got a one-handed sword, and no shield. Could he be the Black Swordsman? The bandit's face turned white as a ghost. He took a few steps back, looking really scared. Rosalia, I don't think this is a good idea anymore. He stuttered. Kirito's reputation just got a whole lot cooler. It turned out he was one of the original testers of the game. And get this, front line clearer too. The whole group was stunned. Silica's eyes went wide with surprise. She couldn't look away from Kirito's back, which wasn't very big at all, but she had suspected that he was an extremely skilled player from their battles together. Now it all made sense. Imagine being in a video game and meeting someone who's basically a superhero with a sword. That's what happened when Rosalia and her friends ran into a mysterious guy known as the Black Swordsman. But here's the thing, he was way more powerful than they could have ever imagined. In the game, there are special players called clearers who are like the ultimate warriors. They explore unknown areas, fight tough bosses, and help move the game forward. Rosalia had heard that clearers were too cool to hang out on the mid-level floors, where she and her friends were playing. So when she saw the Black Swordsman, she was totally shocked. Her mouth hung open for a few seconds before she snapped back to reality. Had a clearer would never waste his time down here, she said, trying to sound brave. He's just some poser who thinks he can scare us by dressing up like a tough guy. The other players started to get excited, thinking they could take down the Black Swordsman and steal his valuable stuff. One big guy with an axe shouted, yeah, if he's really a clearer, that means he's loaded with cash and awesome items. Let's go get him, he's like a walking treasure chest. The others cheered and drew their swords, ready to attack. Little did they know, they were in for a big surprise. The swords flashed in the light, looking super scary. Kirito, we have to get out of here, now, Silica exclaimed, gripping her crystal tightly. She was right, Rosalia thought. Even someone as tough as Kirito couldn't take on a dozen enemies at once. But Kirito just stood there, frozen. He didn't even pull out his sword. The other players took this as a sign that he was giving up. 9 of them, all wearing orange, charged forward with loud battle cries. They were accompanied by Rosalia, and a guy with spiky hair, who seemed to be leading the charge. It looked like Kirito was in big trouble. The bridge shook beneath their feet as the group charged at Kirito. Rana! They yelled, their swords and spears flashing in the air. They formed a half circle around him. striking him with everything they had. Kirito stumbled and swayed under the attack. Silica was horrified, she covered her face with her hands and screamed. "No, stop. You're going to kill him." But the men didn't listen. They were too caught up in the fight, laughing and shouting insults. Some of them looked like they were enjoying it, while others just seemed angry. But they all kept hitting Kirito. One blow after another. Rosalia was so excited that she had walked halfway across the bridge. She had a huge smile on her face and was even sucking on her finger as she watched the battle unfold. Meanwhile, Silica was feeling overwhelmed. She wiped away her tears and tightly grasped the handle of her dagger. She knew jumping into the fight wouldn't make a difference, but she just couldn't stand by and watch anymore. Just as she was about to jump into action, she saw something that made her stop in her tracks.
Kirito's health bar wasn't moving.
Well, not exactly. The bad guys were hitting him over and over, but only a tiny bit of damage was showing up on his bar. And then, every few seconds, it would magically refill to full. The bandits were confused, they were attacking him like crazy, but it wasn't working. They finally stopped fighting, looking puzzled, and one of them asked, "What's going on? What are you doing?" "Come on, finish him off already," Rosalia yelled, frustrated, but when the group started hitting him again, nothing seemed to happen. One of the attackers stumbled back, looking totally grossed out. "What's going on with this guy?" he muttered. The others started to get weirded out too, and soon they all stopped fighting. They kept their distance, unsure of what to do. The bridge fell silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Kirito slowly lifted his head, a calm look on his face. "Let's do the math," he said in a soft voice. "All 9 of you together managed to take away 400 of my hit points in just 10 seconds. That's not bad. But here's the thing, I'm level 78, and I have a whopping 14,500 hit points." He paused for a moment before adding, "And with my special battle recovery skill, I automatically get back 600 hit points every 10 seconds. So how's that going to work out for you? You could fight me for hours and still lose," I said with a confident smirk. The guys just stared at me, their mouths hanging open in shock. One of them, a big guy with a huge sword, finally spoke up. His voice sounded like gravel under your feet. "That's impossible. It's crazy talk," he said, shaking his head. I just laughed and shot back. "Exactly. It sounds crazy, but all it takes is a few key advantages to make the impossible happen. See what I mean about how unfair these online games can be?" Kirito's voice was low and serious, and it made the guys take a step back. They looked scared now, not just surprised. Just then Rosalia snapped her fingers in frustration and grabbed a special crystal from her belt. "I'll just teleport away," she started to say, but before she could finish, Kirito suddenly appeared right next to her. "Whoa," he snatched the crystal out of her hand and grabbed her jacket, pulling her back across the bridge. Rosalia struggled and yelled, "Let me go. What's wrong with you?" Kirito didn't say a word, but he tossed Rosalia back with the other guys, who were all frozen in shock. Then he dug his hand into his pocket, looking for something.